I couldn't even get his kid back. And he
and what did Shimon do to deserve it? Come to Cong.
Okay. Just want to give you a shukach, of course, to the Rahmani family, sponsoring the Chaburah, Zech Nishmas, Rabbi's father, Avinoam and Chaim and Shemiras and Aliyah, and also to the Parnes HaShana, anonymous, but sponsoring the Shiur, לעילוי, נשמת, Rabbi גדליה, Ben Rabbi Shimon, and Shemiras and Aliyah. And here's Simcha Nachas and Bracha. Okay. It's Erev Chanukah, and we have the schus to be Isaac in the Halachos of Shemiras Einayim, of Kedushas Einayim. So over the years we've spoken many times about the connection between the Yontiv of Chanukah and Kedushas Einayim. The Swarm talk a lot about that. So the Yontiv of Chanukah is the Yontiv of seeing, of the eyes, of Ein Lanu Rishus L'Hishtamesh B'Hem Ella L'Roisem B'Lvad. And the Swarm is brought down from Pinchas Koretz, many tzaddikim, at the time of Chanukah is a time of Tikkun Einayim. The 36 candles, the Matrialeya, and Leis Ve'ene Le'Rakos, and the whole kilkul of Yavan is Choshech Echshichu, Einayim Sheyisrael, the darkening of our eyes. The darkening of our eyes, when we grew up, when we were learning this farm, the darkening of the eyes had to do with the study of philosophy and, Aristotle and Plato. I haven't met a bacher over the last 50 years that cares about Aristotle and Plato. Most of them never heard of them either these days. There are other things that are darkening the eyes of our kids, and our own eyes that are being darkened by the things that are in the world now, the things that we're seeing. Not just the inappropriate images, but well, the eyes are constantly under attack, and the Svarim tell us that it's a huge tikkun. We'll talk more about this on Yontif, but just by way of coming back into the halachas, it's a huge tikkun to sit quietly by the candles. To try, everybody should try if possible, to at least that half hour, to be able to sit by the candles and to look at the candles, The Svarim have to say about the tikkun that can come with that. You don't have to even say anything. You can say all the tefillas that you like, if you like candles, but after everything and it's quiet, to be able to sit quietly by the candles and just to look at them, to watch them. It's a tremendous tikkun for the eyes, for the Einayim. So let's go back to the halachas that we're learning. It's hard because you don't have the sefer in front of you and using the phone, which is hard on the eyes. So, in many ways. So, that's why I would spend. There's a lot here on the Indian Shemiras Einayim, a couple hundred pages. We're only going to do the basic halachos. So it's possible to print it out. It's probably easier to look at it when it's on the printed page. I'm Stakel. We're on page Tes Zayin in the Sefer Yisrael Kodeshim, Seif Daled. We're going to see in a second a fascinating story that was actually censored from the Gemara. You'll see why in a minute. That we learned. That's brought down in many Rishonim. That from the pasuk of Lo Sasurach Ve'Levavchem Achrei Einayim, not to be led astray by our eyes, our hearts and our eyes. The heart's referring to Aristotle and Plato. That's minus apikarsis. That's the heart. That's the heart. But the eyes, not to be led astray by looking at things that we shouldn't be looking at. And we learned last week that there's a machlokes. Rabbi Yonah and the Rambam, whether it's a deraisa, it's a rabbanon. Rabbi Yonah says it's a deraisa. The Rambam seems to be saying that the Isser of Istaklis is midrabanan. So, according to the view that holds that it's midaraisa, it's v'loisasuach ve'levavchem achrei einayim, over al loisinaf. That's a chiddush that we find in a number of the Rishonim. Chiddush that loisinaf, the Isser of committing adultery, is not only b'poel, it's not only physically committing adultery, but also the eyes, adulterous eyes. Kan noef be'enov nikagam ken noef. Of course, that's a hint. That's not accepted as being a deraisa. The lo sinaf is pashut lo sinaf, but nevertheless, it's brought down by many of the Rishonim that there is this isser of niyuf beinayim, that even if a person doesn't do anything, but looking itself is an isser of niyuf. V'chein oivra idei estakluso al v'al tifnu el ha'elilim. Now, what does looking at something inappropriate have to do with avodah zarah? V'al tifnu el ha'elilim. So the Svarim talk about this. The Musa Svarim have a lot to say about this. Rabbi Chazkel, Rabbi Yucham, all the tzaddikim talk about this. That the Rabbi Yonah also speaks about this. What's the avodah zarah of looking at the wrong stuff? It doesn't mean that itself, of course, is an act of idolatry. It's more of, like we just said, adultery, not idolatry. But when a person becomes, the way it's understood in Rabbi Yonah is that when a person becomes meshubit to his taivas, like the Gemara says on the pasuk, lo yeh b'cha el zar, you shouldn't have a foreign god, b'cha, inside of you. It means that when you worship your own personal desires, your own taivas, so it's a bechina of avodah zarah. It doesn't mean that it's mamash avodah zarah. There are many things that Chazal equate with avodah zarah. You get angry, kol koyes. There are many other things. Kol mizgoya. There are many things that are equated with avodah zarah. Here, al tifnu el ha'elili means your focus is on your own desires, your own taivas. You're not focused on the Ratzon Hashem. That's why you're getting lost in that place of pagam heinayim, of tumas heinayim, and so on. But what the poskim talk about, and we're going to be discussing, is it's one thing to look. What happens is, as a result of that looking at something inappropriate, it causes you to act out. Act out either chalila with somebody else, or to act out by oneself. So, or even acting out that looking at something, even if you don't physically act it out, but it messes up your head with your hurei aveira. So we're going to see also in neshmat. There are other sources that are in the Torah, but here too it's compared to Elohim HaSeichel that you are building for yourself. It's compared to actually creating or building, making some kind of an avodah zarah. So these are all asmachtes and ramazim. The ikar isser, of course, is v'loisasuach ve'levavchem. And Daled yeshayim the mistakel l'shem znus oivra v'loisasuach ve'levavchem achrei einayim. There are those who say that if you, this is returning a little bit to what we were learning last week, There are those who say that if your intention at looking at this woman or whatever it is, if your intention is l'shem znus, for that purpose of that satisfaction, that excitement of znus, then you're over on the issue of losasu. See here, there's a chiluk. If you're looking l'shem znus with the desire, the thought, the intention to carry something out with this person, l'shem znus, so then you're over on losasu. But if it's not l'shem znus, how do you make a distinction between l'shem znus and hana ba'alma? That it's attractive, it's nice to look at, but it's not that you're going at this with the thought of znus. Then over on the shmarta, then you're over on the isser over the shmarta mikol davara. Shmarta mikol davara. If the source of this is found, if you can see it, I don't know if you're able to see it on the next page in Yud Beis. It's brought down in the Smak and the Sefer Mrs. Kot Mr. Lamed. Shleiloso achar ha'ayin. Dechsiv achrei einayim. And Dosh Rabbi saying the Gemara in Brachos zehu znus. Achrei einayim is znus. Shleistakel benoshim l'shem znus. So the Smak brings this Gemara to tell us that the real isser, the ikr isser of losasu achrei lavav achrei einayim, is that you're looking at a woman with lustful eyes. With that, in order to fill oneself with that type of l'shem znus. Shleistakel benoshim l'shem znus. Afagav the mapik istaklis noshim mikrev nishmatim mikol davara. Hahu istaklis noshim shelo l'shem znus. Rak shenena bistaklo. But if a person is looking just that it has a hana, it's not with this thought l'shem znus, and how one makes that distinction is not so clear. So that's for nishmatim mikol davara. V'chein hu b'sefer charedim. V'nishmatim mikol davara azhar shelo istakel b'arayis. The pasuk v'lesasu achrei einayim. Next page is to istaklos l'shem znus. So we see that the charedim also makes the distinction between the two psukim. But pasuk zeh ba les are histaklos afilu shelo l'shem znus rak shenene b'istaklos. So the charedim explains that the pasuk v'nishmatim mikol davara, that you should guard yourself from anything that's ra, is even if you're not looking at this l'shem znus in that lustful way, l'shem znus, but just that it's something pleasant to see. It's you have hana. So that's learned out from nishmat to be called davara, and according to many Rishon, it's midaraisa. Back on top, Vav, on page Yud Ches, Amastaka benoshim makan isamakis mardus. According to the Rambam, who holds this in midrabanan, that if a person is mastaka benoshim, the shame is nuz. So it could even be according to many Rishonim just because it's something which is pleasant and you enjoy looking at. Then at the time that we were able to do that, the person will get makas mardus. So b'zman haGemara, afayimanaden ben nidui. Now here's we're going to see an interesting story. In the time of the Gemara, there was a person who was not hiding this, and he would dray around in places to, like we saw last week, that you had some of these men, they would stand by where the women were doing the laundry and so on. But in the time of the Gemara, there was a person who was obviously in this type of a lifestyle, so they would be menadim bin nidui. They would put him into nidui, they would be menadim. He would be in chayim. Vishamatsu asik binyanim eila. Vishamatsu binyanim eila. It would be hard to get a minion anywhere these days. So they put it to chayim. But here's the interesting story. Look at Footnote Yudalit. It's just in time for December 25th. What's the story? So this is censored in the Gemaras and the regular Gemaras, but nowadays the Gemaras already, most of the Gemaras, the new printings are putting this in as well. But sometimes it's included in the back after the Masech that has the parts that were taken out by the censor. For obvious reasons, these are Gemaras Saitim Mem. So there at the end of Saitim Ki also Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya. There is some debate among the historians whether this can be borne out historically, that Aish, that the one from Nazareth, that whether he was actually a Talmud, he definitely was a Talmud by the Tanaim. He definitely learned by the Tanaim. The question is whether he can be placed historically as being a Talmud of Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya. So the the majority of Mefarshim Achronim do accept this literally, that he was a Talmud, that Aish was a Talmud of Rabbi Shua ben Prachya. He also says, the Gemara says over there a story, Ki also Rabbi Shua ben Prachya ikla lahu ushpiza, that Rabbi Shua ben Prachya was apparently going with some of his Talmidim, and they were staying overnight in an inn, some kind of a motel. And Cong kamayi b'yikar shapir avdile yikar tuva. There was the balas achsanya, the woman that was running, the wife of the owner, the woman that she was running this little inn. So she was doting upon Rabbi Shua ben Prachya. She had the schus to have a tzaddik stay, so she was very, very attentive. She was taking care of him. V'kibdoi saharbe. She was mechabed. She was very much mechabed. Rabbi Shua ben Prachya. Yosef v'kom mishtabach kamanoi achsan yazu. Now Rabbi Shua ben Prachya said, "How wonderful, how praiseworthy is this achsanya." Now, when he said how praiseworthy is this achsanya, he wasn't saying, I really like the balabasta over here, the balabasta, I like this lady. He was saying, this is a wonderful place. They take such good care of us. The hotel is a wonderful hotel. That's what he was saying. But one of the Talmidim that was there, and the understanding is that it was Aish, Ahmad Echad Talmidim, he was considered to be one of the foremost disciples. So you can imagine that Aish, that Yashka was a huge Talmud Chacham. They didn't. It wasn't like anybody get into the Beis Medrash of Yeshua ben Prachya. So, Amalai. So he was thinking that this was a praise of the Balas Achsanya. Rabbi Eineha Trutais. He said, "Yeah, her eyes. I don't like her eyes. I don't agree that she's not that attractive because the eyes are not so beautiful." Short is a different explanation. It means that she has like half closed, tired looking, whatever. She's not so beautiful. So Amalei, so Yeshua ben Prachya said, Russia, b'kachat ha'esek. What do you think? I'm not talking about I'm looking at a lady. Russia, b'kachat ha'esek. That's what you're thinking about? Russia. Apik arba me'es. So he got right to action. Yeshua ben Prachya got right to business. Listen to this. Apik arba me'es shipuri v'shamte. He right away gathered together 400 shofars, and the people that were needed to blow these shofars, because that's part of the ceremony of putting somebody in chayrim. And he put them into chayrim. Sugi zisa gamken Gemara Sanhedrin el shehushmat legamri betfusim idei censor. This Gemara was taken out by the censor because it was generally accepted and understood by the church that whenever this student, even the Gemara itself was careful in this place at least. Some places it actually says Yeshua, but here it doesn't say. But when it says the Talmud of Rabbi Shua ben Prachya, the Christians and their scholars understood it that it was a veiled reference to the one from Nazareth. So this had to be taken out from the censor, even if it didn't say his name. It was accepted that this was who it was referring to. And in the completely uncensored version, it actually does have his name in Sanhedrin, not in Saita, but in Sanhedrin it says it was Yeshu Hanotzi. It was Yoshka Osaish Shehesis V'Deiches Yisrael. V'Yeshu Kosvu Dainazel Lahaya Ala Hamira Greda. Those who explain, who write that the punishment, this is a very strong punishment to put him into chayr, that it wasn't just for the way that he said this or what he said, that was a chutzpah that he said such a thing. And in that sefer told us Am Olam from Rottenberg, which I looked in the sefer to see what he writes over there. It's an old very choshev sefer on Toldos, on Divrei Yom, like a history sefer. So he brings there from many sources to show that this was like the straw that broke the camel's back. It wasn't that Rabbi Shua ben Prachia just put his Talmud into Cherem because of this one particular thing that he said, although it was pretty inappropriate. But it was a whole series of things and different types of behavior on the part of Aish that led eventually to this, that by the time he said this, Rabbi Shua ben Prachia said, all right, that's enough with you. So it wasn't just this one Indian. There was a pattern in Yosker's life long before he became, the god of the Christians. The Isser Estaklos haya kol kach chamur b'yimeim shel Tanoim hakadmonim ad kedei nidui chamur zeh. However, the simple pshat in the Gemara doesn't mention the Gemara there doesn't talk about any other things that Yeshua was up to, and the simple pshat of the Gemara is giving over how in the days of the Tanoim that the Isser Estaklos was seen as something which is an unbelievable perversion. They were in that such a madrega that at least by the Tanoim and the Talmidim, we can't really learn from here what it was like just a regular Amcha on the street, because we're talking about a yeshiva bacher with his Rabbi. But we see that there was something which was very chomer in the eyes of the Tanoim, even though he didn't do anything. He just spun me later on in his life. Chazal tells us he was Isaac in all kinds of niyuf and all kinds of things, aveiros. But just by saying that, the fact that he was looking at a woman that was already considered something that would warrant putting him to cherem. So it's an interesting story. I thought you'd enjoy. Zayin, back on topic. Also leish lestakel alisha. Afilu mucheres. Learn this. The Gemara says that it's forbidden to intentionally look at a woman. Afilu mucheres. Ben Aish Ben Pni, whether she's married or she's single. With single, we learned last time that somebody who's not married, we're not talking there about a deraisa, about a derabanan, although there can also be a deraisa where the intention is l'shem znus. We'll get to that more later on. It doesn't mean that you have to be staring for a long time. Even though you're not marble his bainanba, not for a long time, but even in staklis mu'etes, the key is if you mistakel b'kavana, either l'shem hana or l'shem znus, if it's for the intention of enjoying that moment of looking at the person, that's included. That's b'chlal the iser. Let's look a little bit at the notes at Tezayin, a little bit, not the entire thing, just a little bit at Tezayin and then Yudzayin. Tezayin. It's important to know where these things come from. Hine nidai zenes bar b'devi harbe achrayim mibli chelik kedlahalan ela shabak doris isuri estakol shabashari isuri haTorah. Also something which is very interesting. We find in a number of other areas of Torah that there are isurim of histaklos. There are certain things that we're not allowed to gaze upon besides this isur of histaklos b'noshim. So then, what many of the Achvarim are doing is that they're trying to study each of the different areas in halacha where there's an isur of histaklos, and to try to come up with one formulation. Is there a particular type of histaklos that across the board is what Chazal mean by osel histakel? Or do we make distinctions? For instance, we're going to see about looking at a rainbow, right? So it's an isur histakel to look at a keshes. So is that when the lush of osel histakel or by a keshes? Or let's say the Gemara says it's osel histakel b'fnei adam rasha. You're not allowed to look at the face of a rasha. You can't look at the face of a rasha. So what the question is, whenever it says in Chazal osel histakel, is there one formulation of what that isur is, histakelus, or do we say no? There's a distinction between all these different isurim. So bagdaris histakelus shebashari isur Torah metzina b'zeh deus b'achronim mahu geder histakelus. So there are different opinions by the achronim. What exactly is the geder histakelus when it comes to all of these different things? Haim hu rak histakelus meruba. So to look at a rainbow, does it mean that you're staring at it? You spend a couple of minutes looking at a rainbow? Or does it mean even a staklis muetis? Just to look for a second. Filo staklis muetis, how bechlal shemis staklis. We need le'inyin staklis b'kahanim. So for instance, looking at the kahanim when they're duchening. Right? Looking at the hands of the kahanim when they're duchening. that when I was a little kid, I was terrified of that, which of course made it more exciting to maybe chop a little bit. But I was very afraid of that. You have people that they're so afraid they actually turn around in the kind of a duchening, which then you're not included in the brach if you turn around, because it has to be emor lahem. The Gemara says in sight that you have to face the kahana. You just keep your eyes down. People go turn around. But a lot of women do that. They picked it up from their mothers. That's something that a lot of people were doing. So regarding this Isser, there is an Isser. It's brought down in halacha. Linyan histaklis because Shvas HaShechina on their fingers. So linyan histaklis bekahana beish and eisen kapayim. So mavur b'magen Avinoam brings down amasha kosu mechaber v'yu pneim keneged pnei kahanim. The mechaber says very clearly, you have to face the kahanim. Pneim keneged pnei kahanim. You have to face the kahanim. You can't be ma'acharei kahanim. That's why if you're seated on the other side, you have to come around. You have to be facing the kahanim. V'yu pneim keneged pnei kahanim v'lo yistaklu b'hem. That's what the mechaber says. V'lo yistaklu b'hem. He doesn't even say don't look at their fingers. He just says don't look at the kahanim. The mashma the lashon l'stakel, mashma davka l'stakel harbe aser. Avri ba'alma loy mitzar. So the Magen Avram is medayik from this. Again, he understands that the issue of stakelus here means by the kahanim is watching them when they're duchening, watching the duchening, not just for a second your eye is caught. It's just watching them when they're up there for duchening. But stam. A Riyah Ba'alma that you happen to. That's not it. That's the Magen Avram. Ve'hevi dvar Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah brings this down. V'chein kosev b'Magen Avram l'inin birchas haraya ilanos toivus or brias toivus afilu akum or behema. It's an interesting din. There are special brachas that we have by birchas hariyah. There are certain brachas that we make for seeing certain things. So, for instance, haraya ilanos toivus or brias toivus. So, to see beautiful trees, or briyos tovos. Now, briyos tovos means beautiful creatures that Hashem has made in the world. And it's not only talking about an animal, it says, afilu akum, or behema. The mevarach baruch shekachalei ba'ilama, afilu akum, an oived of a zara, or behema. You make a bracha, baruch shekachalei ba'ilama. The post can bring down why we're not so accustomed to making this bracha anymore, but I'm not going to go into that right now. But you make a bracha, bracha that Hashem makes beautiful things in the world. There's an issa to be mistakable to musalam of the Russia. You're not allowed to look at the face of a Russia. So how are you allowed to look at the tzura of an akum, of an oived of a zara, and to make a bracha, bracha karchel apeilama? Hachamari, so the Magen Avram says the same yisod. Hachamari sherei eyu. That's talking about not that you stand and you stare at this, but that you see. You see. Mikol makom near the davkel estakel by biyosel is b'nei b'tzalmo the musay asa. This is to be mistakel, like to look at and to watch this akum. Doesn't mean, because even if somebody that's not Jewish, that's attractive, that's nice looking, whatever, it doesn't mean histaklis to look at. Avariya ba'alma mutter. V'chein hu b'mishnah berurah. Because the Magen Avram sheken hu agam ken b'reish sem reish chavtes. The kavanos l'masha kasam mechaber l'ni v'iyas hakeshes ba'anan. About looking at the rainbow. Because that's ma'ira, the whole lineage of the din of the marble and so on. So the mechaber says over there. So there the mechaber spells it out that it's okay to see the beautiful rainbow. That's not the problem, but l'stakal to stare at it, to look at it. Not to look at it a lot. On the other hand, there are other interesting areas of halacha where, again, Shemiras Einayim is not only when it comes to Arayos, where we have to be careful with what we look at. So we find that, you remember that Bilam, one of the things that Bilam was saying when he was when he was giving us the brachas, he wanted to give us klolos, but Hashem made them into a bracha. The Rashi brings down from Chazal that the windows were not facing each other. In other words, the Jews were not looking into other people's tents to see what's going on. So this is not just a musar; it's a big Indian in halacha. Also, there's a din of niskei shchenim to be looking into other people's homes. It's considered to be a nezek. You're being mazik by looking into someone else's home to see what they have, to see what's going on. So these are dinim in Choshen Mishpat, in this case Shchenim. Kavu b'shulchan aruch Choshen Mishpat over there in Kuf Nun Daled. B'Rama yesh oim shetzarich l'zar adam listakel b'beis chaveiro. A person, there are a number of reasons that are brought down, but a person should be careful. Don't look into other people's windows. Don't look into their homes. Ashu nitpas keganev b'riyahi. That looks like you're a ganev b'riyahi, that you're looking to see what this person has, and nitpas keganev b'riyahi. Shein lo taina, that you wouldn't be able to refute if you were doing such a thing. Because of the nesivus hamishpat, the nesivus brings down b'shem hasma. Hainu afilu estaklis muatas. So even to peek into a neighbor's house, afilu estaklis muatas. Even though you're not trying to see all the way inside, you just estaklis muatas. You should never stand by the window, by the house, or whatever, the open door of another person's house and look inside at all. Even estaklis muatas. So here we see that the small holes that we're talking about, even a little bit, to look even a little bit. So there are chilukei dayos by certain things, when it means looking a lot, when it means looking a little. So even if you look for a little bit, even if estaklis muatas, so that's already nisa. Because people, there's no time to answer, like, why are you standing there looking into somebody else's house, unless you're casing out the place for something. Like, why are you looking into somebody else's house? I'm sure nowadays they can come up with many other reasons why a person is looking into somebody else's house, but yachshadu, because to see the furniture, to see however it's done, yachshadu she'lirais neskavim. There's a friend of mine who was telling me that this goes many years ago. He was building they knocked down. They were building this in Borough Park. They redid a lot of the houses from the old house. And he was doing his house in Borough Park, and there was an Alta Yid that would stand there for hours a day, like watching everything that was going on with his hands behind his back. And he would just stand in front of his house, like watching. He watched the construction. He was watching everything. And he would just like stand there for a long time watching. So finally, this guy went to ask this Yid, like, if you don't mind me asking you, Rabbi, what is it that? Oh no, what happened was he started to tell some of the workers that they should do things a certain way. That was the clincher. So until that time, my friend didn't say anything. Okay, he has nothing to do with whatever. He stands there looking at. But then he started to say, no, this should go like this. So then my friend said, he went over to me. He said, okay, I don't mind, Rabbi, that you stand here and you look at what's going on, but like, please don't give aces, Well, like, where do you come off giving aces? So he said to him that the way that this person told him, the person speaks a very beautiful Yiddish. He was raised Yiddish. The way he said it, this Yid, was that I figured that since you're building this house mostly to impress me, that I should have a say in what you do. You gave him like a good one. He said, no, it's my wife wants that. Cause I don't know. It was very fancy. They're doing all kinds of things. He said, I shouldn't have a say. It's for me. Why shouldn't I have a say? So there's an issue in this case, Shchenim, to look inside other people's homes, to see what's going on, to stand around watching, to look. I mean, nobody talks about that as being the outside of the house, but to look inside somebody's house. Now, these machlokes about how do we define histaklis? Is it histaklis meruba, or is it histaklis even histaklis mu'etes? So these machlokes are regarding these other things. Shchenim, neighbors, keshes, kahanim, and so on. But it's mavur. But avalinian histaklis benoshim. But the Mishnah Berurah explains, however, when it comes to histaklis benoshim, when it comes to looking at women, mavur b'divrei achronim she'osa af histaklis mu'etes. Then The Kuli Alma histaklis means afilu histaklis mu'etes. Even for a moment. It doesn't dafke, it's not dafke histaklis meruba, even it's for a moment. Again, if it's with the kavana to have hana, or the kavana of znus, not stam. But even histaklis mu'etes, that's the Kuli Alma of the post can say that it's different when it comes to histaklis benajim. Look at on the next page, footnote Yud Zayin. The kol shemestakbel kavana ubechlal iser, that's considered to be in the iser. On page Chaf, footnote Yud Zayin. Kedivrei hahafla besifra nesivas haShabbos shehuva behara kedemes ha'ikuhu kshu makavin l'roisa kagon lahabit b'yoifya. Again, it doesn't have to be, the Hafla explains, it doesn't have to be that you want to do something with this lady, or that it's some filthy thought, but that it's something that it's nice for you to see, a beautiful woman. That's called mistakel. It doesn't have to be l'shem znus, l'shem taiva. It's to enjoy looking at the beauty of this person. Kol shemakaven liros oy lishma, also b'chol shel l'stakabov lishma, but kol get the kalisha afterwards. That's not really what we're asking right now. But lezen noitim divrei sefer Yad Malachi, shekosav histaklos kol hechad di'ise loshen zeh hu yoisim re'iyah. That when it says, so the Yad Malachi says that when it says a loshen of histakel, it's a notch up from the word liros. It's a notch up. Ki hamistakel moisu medaktik ba'abot yoisim haroeh. Haroeh means that incidentally your eyes crossed over, passed by. That's called haroah. You see something. Listaka means you want to see it. You want to see it. The Malachi says that the Isra V'Staklis means that you didn't just happen to see it, but you want to look at this. But it's even if it's for a little bit. And the Rogat Shova says this as well. It's brought down in the Tshuvas Salmas Yosef. Histaklus havi bekavana. The Rogat Shova explains that histaklus means with kavana. Zachilik ben habata behefka ben re'iyah. Re'iyah. Ayin shamatoises v'avimitziyah dafkav yuches zeva kavana v'zeh re'iyah ba'alma. Histaklus means, the ikka is that histaklus means bekavana. You're looking at something. Not that you see something. You're looking at something. Rei oid lahalam b'divrei achrayim shemavuim b'divrayim dekulam pirshu gamken shegeder isuhu mikavin lirosa. The komakom yayin lahalan shenechlo v'agdar d'mediyekes b'zeh we'll see more later on in Makom kan. Lahatik b'zeh perusha shel hanetziv b'sefer Hamikdavar. The Netziv writes something very, very interesting in Hamikdavar and Veschanan. On the pasuk in the Aseret Dibrus, v'leisachmaid eishes re'echa. So you can't. They say that the English word is kavod, right? That's what they say. You can't. So whenever we were kids, they used to say kavod, and we used to look at each other. It's one of those things like in school that they just assumed that you knew, or they didn't care whether you. I mean, we definitely had teachers that didn't care if we understood what they were saying. It wasn't unusual. But they would say, "Lo sachmat." So what does it mean? It says, "Dom kavod." Okay. Anything that was with a woman, they never explained, but it was just "Lo sachmat eshes ve'echa." No one knew what he was talking about. So the Netziv says this. So, Lo sachmat eshes ve'echa. Yichad hakosu b'dibros halalu. The Netziv says that the Torah went out of its way to put into the Aseret HaDibros Asar be'eshes re'eh b'fnei asar. An issa of a married woman, Lo sachmat, with a married woman. Ubeloshen acher mikol asher l're'echa. And then it says, by mikol asher l're'echa, it says, Lo tis'ave. It says, Lo sachmat eshes re'echa. And then it goes on to say, the Lashon Lo tis'ave mikol asher l're'echa. L'lamdenu sheyesh bi'isha azhara miyuchedes. So in general, there's an issue of Lo sachmat that applies to not just to somebody's wife. I mean, the pasuk says Lo sachmat eshes re'echa. So you might think that the issue of Lo sachmat is only when it comes to wanting this guy's wife, not wanting his car or wanting his house, whatever it is. It's only the pasuk. It says Lo sachmat eshes re'echa. So the Netziv explains that's why it goes on and says mikol asher l're'echa. Mikol asher l're'echa. It's not only his wife. Mikol asher l're'echa. And the chsiv lo tis'ave l'lamdenu sheyesh bi'isha azhara miyuchedes. So why doesn't the Torah just say Lo sachmat kol asher l're'echa? The issue of lo sachmod applies to anything that it's not yours and you want. So the Netziv says that's why the Torah goes out of its way to. Of course, there's a general list of lo sachmod, which applies mikol asher l'reacha. So why does it single out Aish reacha? To tell you, the Netziv says it's just a pshat in Chumash. To tell you, l'lamdeinu sheyesh be'isha azhar miuchedes, that there's a special azhar when it comes to this issue of lo sachmod with somebody else's wife. So that's the pshat in Chumash. And the Tziv adds that the Lashon lo tisave means that when it comes to the issue of lo sachmod, it could be yoiv on two averos. Maybe yoiv on lo sachmod, lo tisave, lo sachmod, and lo sasu. That even if you have no intention of trying to get this guy's wife, you don't want to. That's not what it is. When it comes to other things, how we define lo sachmod, it could be that you have some intention, you want to get it, or you try to figure out how I can get that. But when it comes to Aish reacha, the issue is the Netziv says also lahanos miriyasa, that the re'iyah itself is already an issue of like tisave. It's already a bechina of like sachmod. Even though you have no thought that you're going to marry this, like you're going to take her away from her husband. Now that issue of lo sachmod Aish reacha, that's davka by a married woman. That's by Aish reacha. Or maybe by all women. When it comes to other things that the person has, so the issue of lo sachmod is not just to admire or to look at, but to, on some level, to conspire a way to somehow get that from the person. We're not going to the whole issue of lo sachmod, but that's what how the Netziv explains that lo sachmod Aish reacha is a special issue that even if you have no intention to try to get this woman from the guy, to get his wife away, you're already over on the issue with the addition of like tisave on its own. Just looking at her with this in this way, it's already an issue. Okay, we'll continue with Hashem. We'll continue with the Re'iyah Ba'alma, the Sivkas next week. Okay, everybody's invited to come to the Siyum, having 10 o'clock. Yeah, he is criticized.
You must know
Yeah, that's what he's trying to get from me. But he was criticized. Small Darchei.